Hello, everyone. It's Brian, back for another episode of The Peerless Gamer, Lumina Aegis. You'll forgive me, this episode I've got a little bit of a catch in my throat, so I'll try to keep the throat clearing to a minimum. And so, quick recap of our last episode. We've made it into the complex where Xenia is, with the idea that we're going to rescue Xenia or help Xenia in some way. And through the control room, we found our first terrestrial of extra origins, or extraterrestrial in this case. And it's dead, of course. Not sure how, which is interesting. We made it down a lift, down an elevator shaft, down to the deck where Xenia says that she is, while at the same time we know that the ships that were chasing us in earlier episodes from Atwell Industries is making its way through the barrier that we passed through, and that Xenia had put up for us, in the initial, had put up in mocking of a black hole to deter people from visiting, or humans from visiting, the research station which we landed on. And so we've made our way through a hallway. We heard an interesting alarm that occurred, and that was shouting a warning, which we think was the ships that was breaching the barrier. Managed to turn that off, nearly killed ourselves by opening the lab where Xenia is found, because there was no atmosphere that was breathable. Xenia attempted to intimidate the ships that are coming this way to warn them off, and that did not work, because we surmised that Xenia is not threatening looking enough in this case. And as we went in, the lab has a breathable atmosphere now, and there are little worker bots or something running around in the lab. There's another extraterrestrial that are non-human that is dead, and like really dead, like pulped for whatever reason, up against one of the walls. And we found Xenia, which appears to be in a crystalline structure of some kind. We're not exactly sure at this point. When we last left, we had just gotten into the lab and had just seen the lab as it is, including Xenia mentioning, "Hey, this is me," and pointed to the crystal. And so I think that's where we're going to start. Okay, so that roll doesn't mean anything. I was just testing things out to make sure that everything was working well. And so you have our screens up. We've got everything going. Just gonna roll to make sure everything's good. As we went in, Xenia points at what appears to be a rather large crystal. It is red in nature, and it's almost like a flower, but instead of a flower, it's hard, it's metal, it's translucent. You can see through it, and there are four pillars coming out of it, four crystal red pillars coming out of it, and it appears to be having arcs of electricity coming down into it, like something is powering or being powered by something above. So there's a ball, very much like what you would see a Van de Graaff generator or something, sending arcs of energy, and you can hear that, and you can smell the ozone in the air. There is something inside of the crystal. You see the crystal itself, and you see something inside of the crystal, but you can't really tell what it is right now from let's gather information, as we are wont to do here. Let's go ahead and roll. And while I'm rolling, I will get the shortcuts up for the other stuff. So according to our sheet, if we gather information, I believe it is a wits. So a wits is a 2. So 5, it's actually a double 7. So I forgot about that the last time on our episode. There was a thing that came up that was double 7. I am Going to double check my, let me see, where is it? Reference guide, there it is. I'm going to gather some more information. All right, gather information, rolling wits. So that's a 2, it's a 7. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and burn some momentum because I've got momentum for days. Strong hit, you discover something helpful and specific. Path you follow to take must be to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn, take 2 momentum. Okay, well then, there we go. So, and on top of that, it's a very extra special gather information in addition to a strong hit. So it's probably the best possible look here. So as they walk in, James, Osric, Slick, the holograph of Zinnia looks around, and what we didn't notice before, if we look at the map again, which we'll pop that back down up here and zoom in a little bit. Forgive me, I'm not an art student, as I mentioned. So these little dots represent the little worker robots that were walking around. Some of them might have trays. Some of them might have, graspers or something. Some of them might serve a specific function. Some of them might be lab robots or helping with setting up specific types of labs. You might see one of them working on a table, cleaning something up. The whole idea is to automate all of the processes that whatever this crystal is, and whoever was working in this lab doesn't have to do the menial work, if you will. So what you see at one point is one of the robots walking over to the crystal, and you can see it scan, right? You see a visual, like a scan, and then it says specimen normal. Or let's retcon that. It says it in a language that we don't understand. James says, what did that thing say? And Zinnia says, it said specimen normal. And James says, are you the specimen? And Zinnia says, yes. They actually never gave me a name. It is what they called me. And James asks her, are you being grown in there? And Zinnia says that that's all I've ever known. When I come to what you consider consciousness in that body, all I can see is in that crystal. And James says, is there a way to get you out? Does Zinnia know that? I'm going to say she's smart enough to know that. I'm going to give her better than, I'm going to say 80% chance. Sure. Yeah, she knows that. She says that there are controls over on the panel, but I have been unable myself to release that. There's something going on where I have access to some things, but I don't have access to other things, and that was one of the things that I don't have access to, which we found out in previous episodes. Certain aspects of the system she's able to gain access to, but for whatever reason, this was not able to. So James wonders how they're going to be able to get that open. Slick, Dr. Osric, can you go over there and check that out? And I think we aided an ally. We're going to secure an advantage. So we're going to assess the situation and attempt to gain leverage. So the idea is Osric and Slick are going to use what information they have already. And as we remember, Dr. Osric was recording various linguistic symbols and signs and language as we were going through the control room and through the hallways. So hopefully we'll be able to, fix that. So think we're going to roll. I want to roll heart. So I'm just, commanding, suggesting to them or making it possible for them to do that. So we're going to go ahead and roll, and we're going to aid them in doing so. Ooh. Oh, God. Jesus. Okay. You know what? We're going to roll with this. Wow. So let's go pay the price. And that's going to be bad. Very, very bad. 85. You're stressed. Really? That's it? Like, really stressed? Wow. Okay. Okay. No, you know what? That's garbage. I'm gonna roll that again. Something a little nicer. Come on, man. Shit. 56. A friend, companion is in harm's way. Ding! There we go. Excellent. That's perfect. All right. So as Dr. Osric and Slick are over and analyzing the console, Slick says, yeah, this console looks like it's separated from the rest of the complex, like it has additional security controls on it. Dr. Osric says, yeah, this is a very similar control system to what we have up in the control room, but it was isolated. This must be one of their highest security labs where they don't only do. It would explain why they have it in the interior of the complex and why it's so close to an area that could, in an explosion of the power core, then it would, be one of the first things to go. And it would probably be only for the most important projects. And Dr. Osric says, wow, I'm getting a ton of data from this thing. I can't read all of it at once. So Dr. Osric already has one tricorder fried. As he goes to analyze the data or to see what he can get through, you see Slick go over and she's attempting to press the console, but she says, if it is anything like our interface, and she sees there's numbers and there's things going along, she presses a red button. She's like, well, I mean, you wouldn't want this button in the way, so she presses the button thinking that's going to release Zinnia from the system. All of a sudden, there is a warning light come on. Weep, weep, weep. James says, what did you do? What happened? And both of them look at him and go, we didn't do anything. You hear over the loudspeaker, you hear something very similar to the alert that you heard before when the ships had breached the perimeter and was heading this way. And you hear a thum, thum, thum. Would James know what that is? I'm going to give him a 50% chance. 13. Yes, he does. From James's time working on, at the corporations, and he might have spent some time, watching movies or other media, but that thum sound sounds exactly like ordnance hitting a building, or as if it was exploding somewhere. The alarms go off, and at the same time, a second alarm goes off in the lab. It's almost simultaneous, actually. And it's a blue light, and it goes weep, and it makes a blatting sound. It's not like a normal alarm that we would hear. But to add to it, to a third thing, and we'll call this a third thing, you hear something else in a different voice coming over the speaker system in the lab, and you hear and James is like, Zinnia, what the hell is that? That sounds different. And she's like, I am, yeah, there's two different languages here. So she said the first one, which sounded like what we heard in the hallway in the previous episode, was a warning that we're being fired on. She said the second one, I think it might be the person in the control room. They're asking for the status and that there's a problem and they need to go. And they're waiting for a response, potentially. James doesn't know exactly what to do, But as the blue light, as the blue system is going on, the robots, the mechanized things in the area, which they don't have legs, so they have like I don't want to say float a little bit. They might float along the ground, kind of like how the speeders on starforged is. Floats along the ground. Some of them actually have multi-pedal or spider-like legs, depending on their function, right? So a couple of the ones with the gliding function, whether it be anti-gravity, which would be cool and all by itself, or if it's just sliding along and there's wheels or something underneath, we don't know. They are excited, and there's a warning, but they clear out. So you see them, in their randomness. They start heading towards the walls, which clears the area, right? We don't know if that was what the alarm from the ship being firing on us is the problem, or if what Slick did was the problem, or if it was something else. So James is going to try to gather some information. I'm going to put him at a disadvantage because he is stressed out right now. There's a lot going on. We know that we're trying to get Zinnia out. So I didn't get to the part about the harmed bit. As the robots are moving back to their area, one of them is holding a scalpel or some sort of sharp instrument. The robot hits Dr. Osric across the back of the leg, and he falls. It's a pretty serious injury. Like, he won't be able to make it out himself without help. So we are going to assume Dr. Osric is injured. He cannot walk. He drops the tablet. It's still recording for all intents and purposes. He's screaming and in pain. So James runs over to him to see if he can do anything to help him. At the same time, you see the Van de Graaff generator turning off. Apparently what Slick had done is the shutdown procedure, which is the big red button that was flashing that, you don't hit the big red button, but you hit the big red button. Or what looks like a red button does. And the Van de Graaff generator shuts down. Zinnia says, when that happens, Zinnia disappears. And what you see is there's a glowing that you see. And what you see inside the crystal, it's very, I want to say it's an oval shape, right? It's an oval type shape, an ovoid, almost like an egg, I would say. And what you see is a really, really, it's very dim, and then it starts growing in intensity, and it gets brighter and brighter, and then it comes on. And what you notice is you can feel heat. You can feel heat. You can feel, and the heat is coming from the crystal itself. And that it's probably coming from the egg-like object. And the egg is probably, I would say, an ostrich egg. Like an ostrich egg. I would say it's probably twice the size of an ostrich egg. It's white right now. It's white, and you can see it, and it casts the entire room in kind of a pinkish haze because the light coming from the egg-like object going through the red crystal bathes everything in a purplish glow. And you hear a crack. And at the same time you hear a crack, you hear a couple more boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, the whole building shakes. And that last boom, that last bang was very close to where you are in relation to the complex. And the the ship is, starting, or the station is starting to, move a little bit, and the lights above are flickering, and at the same time, the crystal continues to crack. James is sitting with Dr. Osric and attempting to, staunch the blood flow and tend to his wounds at the same time he's seeing the crack, and he doesn't know what's happening. Does he? What I'm thinking is we're going to have to roll for what happens next. So what I would like is, I'm just going to take one of the tables here. I'm going to roll off of this one, this peril here. And if it works, then we'll continue on through that. So I'm going to roll again. We're going to take the die 100. And this is what's going to happen. Ideally, what's going to happen is the crystal's going to burst. And depending on what happens there, the lab may be destroyed. But what we see is James dragging Dr. Osric and Slick are trying to get behind some of the lab tables. You might see them try to push one of those over. They're very big and heavy, and they're unable to do it without all three of them at least attempting to push their weight against it. So Dr. Osric is being held up by James and Slick, and all of them kind of push against one of the tables and is able to flip one over. At the same time, the 35 hostile creatures take out their turret. Okay. Okay, maybe this wasn't best idea. Yeah. Anomaly effect. There we go. All right, let's roll it again. We're going to do anomaly effect. What's going to happen to the room would be what's 0-2. Oh, okay. Well, that might not be so bad. All right. So what happens is when the explosion occurs, the crystal shatters, and the whole room is bathed in shards of crystal, which are so sharp, even the lab table ends up, taking a few shots of crystal embedded in the crystal. There's pieces of it out in the inside, embedded in the table, so you might see it like this is the table on its side, perpendicular, and you see pieces of it jaggedy in there like that. Several of them, in good comic style, barely missing everyone's head and vital organs and pieces. There might be some scratches and scrapes that people are going to get from that, but nothing that impaled them. At the same time, the lights go out, and there's one more big thum. And at that time, there's not a loss of environment, but something happens and the gravity is gone, right? And all you can see in the room is this egg like this, that twice the size, I would say. Let's use a basketball. Let's say it's a basketball. It's not so much of an oval shape, but it's like the size of a basketball. So it's pretty good size, and it is lit up with light, and it is a white light. It's kind of a pearlescent, but it's white. So you see it's white, but you see flecks of things. You hear a voice, and you recognize the voice. James recognized the voice. Osric and Slick recognize the voice. And it says, "Thank you, everybody, for freeing me." And at the same time, everybody's floating up now because, it appears that gravity has failed because of the firing on the station. Zinnia says, "We need to get out of here." In this form, I can see outside, and this station will not last much longer. So James and Slick and Dr. Osric, they're used to zero-G gravity, so they pick themselves up. They push off from the floor. It's much easier to move Dr. Osric around now because there's no gravity. Zinnia says there may be some gravity in other places, but we we can't do anything. I'll try to let you know if the gravity changes on the way back up to the ship. James asks if Zinnia, can you get the ship to us in a closer place? Can you grab the Deliverance and move it to a different hangar, or is there a closer way of getting to the ship? And Zinnia says she's got a 25% chance of figuring that out right now. Oh, looky. Okay, so yes, the answer is yes, there is an easier way, but I don't think you're going to like it. And James says, try me. She says that if, with the explosion of the containment crystal, it blew out the wall back here. There was damage in the explosion that cracked the window where the power core is, and you can see the power core, it's right here. Kind of reminds me of the lithium chamber where you got the nice, the lights are going up and down at like a barber pole or something like that. And she says, you can, with the lack of gravity, you would be able to go into the area where the power core is. There's no radiation here. And the ship is directly at the very top where a maintenance hatch would be. James says, well, how far up is that? And she says that, well, it's what, roughly, however long it took us to go down the lift is the amount of time it would take us to go up. And it will be able to go much faster going up because of lack of gravity. So the question is, does James want to risk that? Does James want to risk being able to do that? I mean, there may be other issues once they get to the ship, but as it stands right now, they need to get back to the ship and escape. So, oh, see, this is what I needed right here. This is what I needed, minus some of these things here, but yeah, this would have been very helpful right here. Okay. When you gather information, you might uncover clues in the form of messages, rumors, eyewitnesses, reports, data, or physical evidence. You can use this oracle to reveal what this evidence connects to or implicates. That would have been nice to have. And of course, I probably should have looked through all of these PDFs at one point in the past. But anyway, so does James want to risk it? Does James want to risk it? Think so, given the necessity and the fact that there are at least 3 warships out there that are not friendly to the Deliverance, there's also somebody in the control room. James is going to ask, where's that control room? As he's trying to move towards that, he says, is the control room on the way up that this person might have broadcasted from? Zinnia says, well, if there was another control room, it would probably be in the opposite direction. So it's up to you if you want to go to the ship or if you want to go to the control room where this voice came from that asked for a status report. James says, you know what I think James wants to do? I think James wants to take that alien with. I think James wants to take that alien with, because I think we're going to need proof that not only is Zinnia, a person, but that there's other people in the galaxy. James says to Slick, start recording what we're doing here. And she says, did she turn it on? Let's give her a 50-50 shot. Maybe she's already started recording. Maybe we didn't stop recording the whole time. So maybe this is, okay. So she's been recording the whole time. So since we got off the ship, everything that's been going on, he's like, thank you so much. It's like, you're going to save our bacon here. Since we're in 0G, let's grab that alien body and take it with us. Dr. Osric, can you manage? And I would say at this point, James, had a tourniquet or something around Dr. Osric's leg. It is a fairly nasty gash that's going to take some stitches, but we, should be able to fix it up once we get back to the ship. Dr. Osric is, making his way over. He's like, even though this glass is cracked, it's still going to take some effort to get through this. And James takes out his wrench. Slick has the alien, which we're not, it does have what would amount for clothing, but we're going to be carrying it, in 0G. So she's moving around as best she can in 0G, not trying to move too fast because she would run into the walls, etc. There might be blobs of blood from the extraterrestrial non-human coming off of its body. And so James is over and he says, Zinnia, can you give me a little help here? So between the two of them, let's roll how long does it take them to successfully move through? I would say if it takes them 5 more minutes, the closer it gets to 100, the more time it takes to get through. And that will depend on how much more damage the station takes and how much longer it takes them to get to the ship. So let's roll. We'll say 100 is in seconds, right? So if it takes, okay. So there was damage to that. It does take them another at least 1.5 minutes to break through the shield there. One of the last hits, Zinnia says, you're going to need to hold your breaths for a couple of minutes. And James says, what? And then wham, and breaks open the seal. There is a slight rush of vacuum as whatever was in the lab for atmosphere gets sucked out into the core. There's still heat because obviously the power core is warm. It's not radiation. It's thermal heat that is being they capture the thermal heat. It's a very efficient system. Everybody gets pushed out into the core, so they're all out here, right? They're all out here in some way. They actually bounce up against the core, not roughly. They're able to stop themselves. It appears to be made of the same crystal that was being used to hold Zinnia, and it has a texture on it. It's not. You can push against it. What they see on the inner wall is more windows. Those are very slick, not to be slick, but it's not easy to have a foothold. So there are like tiered edges on the power core. So what they use is, they use those as push-offs, and then they make their way up. So it doesn't take them nearly as long to get through. But in that time, there's at least, I'm going to roll a D10 and see how many more Thooms there were. All right, there's at least 6 more Thooms that happen. Every time you see the lights in various areas, you can see labs, you can see what appear to be living areas. There are various, I don't know if aliens had what considered a recreational area or a coffee area or a water cooler area, bathrooms, etc. Those are right there. And so they are making their way up as they continue to go up. And Zinnia says, I'm reading gravity on the other side of the hatch up here, the artificial gravity. And James and them are still kind of awed at the fact that artificial gravity exists. That there's a hatch. And Zinnia can it would be very similar to the lab door, probably, but not as big, right? So James says, "Let me hold on to the non-human here. Can you get this open, Dr. Osric and Slick?" And so we're going to see how much longer it takes them to get that open in terms of seconds. Okay, cool. Not long at all. So based on the previous information from the door that Dr. Osric and Slick and them had done, the door opens up. There's an emergency release that they found on this side. It's weird going from no gravity into an area where there is artificial gravity. And so they get up to a point and then they stop, right? They stop at that point, and they're kind of floating here, and they don't exactly know why. They can't move. They reach up, and as they reach up, they can feel the weight and the attraction, as if they were, trying to reach up and grab something, but they can feel the weight of their hand when the rest of them is in a weightless state. And so James and Slick, as they pull up, they can feel their hands flop forward if they could just kind of let go. So they reach up and they grab, and it gets progressively harder as they pull up through the hood or the hatch, because they can feel the additional weight as the gravity starts to take control. Zinnia says it's not 1G gravity, it's probably a bit heavier. So, as they get halfway up, they realize, oh, there's more gravity here. Something's amiss. There was a malfunction. And there's at least, let's see, I'm going to take this die right here. Boom, boom. Okay. So there are booms going off all over the place. It is very difficult to get things moving. You've heard other klaxons, there's other alarms, very similar to the one where we heard it was firing. Zinnia says there are multiple hull breaches in the station. We need to go as soon as possible. As they lift everyone out and they realize that it's not super heavy gravity, but it is better than Earth gravity, of which James and Slick and them are used to, mostly 0G. It is becoming apparent that it's going to be that the alien is quite heavy. It has a gelatinous form, but it's heavy. It's almost like if lead was an ooze kind of thing. There is some what appears to be cartilage or something, but oh, you know what? Let's have a complication. What I want is, so the other thing that they notice, and I'm just gonna bullshit this. They're touching the body, and the body is slightly acidic or corrosive, and they feel it on their hands. They're like, "Oh, I thought that was just slime, but it's our skin is starting to get puffy and red, kind of like an exfoliation or something." Slick says, "Yeah, we don't want to be holding on to this for very long." You can see where she's got what looks like chemical burns on her hands. And we need to get this thing in some kind of body bag or something that is not going to burn through the hull of the ship. James says, "Yes, well, whatever we need to do. But we need to take this back as proof that this is going to be too big to not take back with us." And so, where's the ship? Is the ship nearby? Because we landed the ship inside that big hangar, and they're technically in the big hangar right now because they're. Can they see the ship? They see the ship. And Zinnia, of course, has gone up into the area, so she's lighting the way. I would say it's roughly half the distance from where they are to the edge of the wall. So, using the 1 to 100, where it's like they would be in, all the way on the other side of so they're about, if this was, say, 54 meters, for instance, this would be how far away it would be, 100 meters being as far away as it could be, or they're 54 meters from the ship is what the ship locator says. And Zinnia can light the way. She says, I sense it over here. So you see a big spotlight coming from her, which she's now a floating ball that looks like a basketball. It's crazy. Starts moving off in that direction, and you can see her and follow her. And Dr. Osric is limping. He's, able to move himself, but he's dragging his leg, and he's moving at about half the speed needed to get through this. James and Slick are taking the alien, which James gonna. I want to gain information here on this. Let's scroll back up. I want to gather some additional information. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so my wits is a 2, so that makes it a 3. So it's a solid hit. What James is going to see when he is investigating, when the chemical burns and whatever, several of the containment crystals are embedded in the body. There's a lot of blood, and the blood is kind of a pink, kind of, like an off color. There's also a blue something coming from the head region. Looks like there might have been a head wound or something. The non-human also has pieces of tech on them that James didn't notice at the time as he's carrying what would be the feet. There's actually multiple feet here, so they're I would say a very solid tentacle, if you will. Not unlike an octopus or something, but it definitely is not a leg like we would have, or a foot with a skeletal or muscular structure. And it would be roughly 2 meters in height. So, but it is as heavy as a human. So, or like an earther, if you will. I've been listening to my Expanse, so I've had to start having a different mindset about people who live in space versus people who live in under gravity. So this is about I would say 2 meters, about 7 feet tall. Would be at its full height. Don't know if this is if the one that we saw earlier that was outside the control room, which was also dead, is if that's the average height or whatever. So. They make their way to the ship. James and them stop because they have to move the things, move the body around or reposition it. James has also got the chemical burns on his hands. He might have torn his shirt or something, and he's got some chemical burns on that and on his arms. They're going to have to be fixed. I feel like we need one more issue. So James puts them down to attempt to resituate and everything, and we're going to have a complication here. It's going to be a 6. Wow, getting a lot of craft. Crucial equipment or device is sabotaged. Shit. Okay, well, that is what it is. As they approach the ship, James yells into his comm badge or whatever, deliverance gets started. Start up the ship. And nothing happens. There's no lights on. The only lights that are happening is from Zinnia's glow and her spotlight-like activity that she has coming out of her body, or what amounts for a body. And Slick says, that should have worked. So she says the same thing. Hey, deliverance, power up. And Zinnia says, it appears there's a problem with your ship. And James says, yeah, tell me something I don't know, Zinnia. It should have started up. There's a problem with the network, or the power systems are down or something. Whoa. There it is. As we get closer, we're within, I'd say, 10 meters of the ship. You see a form. And as Zinnia's light gets closer to the ship and notices the form, everyone stops. And that's where we'll end. Okay, I hate doing that to you, but Um, I think that's a good place to stop. I don't know what that form is yet. I think we need to. I think it'll be time for a vignette, and I think we'll find out who or what that is. It could be any number of things. If you have ideas, and I'd like this to be interactive as possible. You can hit me up on our Reddit, which I'll put right up here. Sorry, right up here. Or you can hit me up on Blueski. Or find me on any social media, or comment in the video below what you think that might be, and like and subscribe and tell your friends if you're having fun. This was I had hoped there'd be more going on with this one, but I'm kind of I don't want to say drawing it out, but I like where this is going. I actually was happy with some of the story complications, and yeah, so looking forward to it. So what we have is, the station is coming down about its ears. We have the alien body, which I think James was needing that because nobody's going to believe the story otherwise. Oh, we found aliens. Okay, well, thankfully, we find that Slick is recording everything. Dr. Osric is still alive and kicking. He got injured, and we hopefully will be able to make it on to the Deliverance and get away from the ships. And I think at that point it'll be like, I think we'll stop at that point with this and figure out what part 2 is going to look like of this, or maybe we'll figure out what the next is looking like. I'm reading Caliban's War right now. Caliban's War for the Expanse, which was one reason I was like, yeah, I should have realized that not everybody's going to be living on Earth or Earth gravity. Not everybody lives on a planet. Listening to James Corey, S.A. Corey, talk about what it's like to be an Earther versus OPA versus Martian, especially with Bobby Roberta, Gunnery Sergeant. I forget, Gunnery Sergeant. I forget her name right now. Shit. It'll be right there when I figure it out. Draper. Gunnery Sergeant Draper. There we go. And from what I gather, she's going to be a character that is going to be in future episodes. So we're going to get to know Bobby, Gunnery Sergeant Draper, a bit more. If you've read the Expanse series, you're like, oh yeah, probably. But anyway, looking forward to that. But it's interesting to hear if you're living in space, you're more elongated, you're taller. She's like 2 meters tall, which everyone else is, on Earth is 5'5", 5'6", 5 foot, anywhere between 5.5 to 6 foot tall, 1.8 meters. She's well over them, very much like Godzilla over them, according to some of the descriptions in the book. But yeah, so I'm trying to remember that and keep that in mind, that people who spend a lot of time in space or grew up in space and not planet side might have different physiology. So I'm trying to remember that. Anyway, like, subscribe, ding the bell, tell people about me, about us. I'm looking at campaign 2 being something a little different. We'll definitely come back to this from time to time, but want to treat it as like a test and figure out if there maybe is a different system that we could use for this next time. Maybe the Expanse RPG, for instance, or use some of the tables from Ironsworn in the Expanse RPG, which I was like, Expanse pretty much has everything I want. It has evil mega corporations, it has bad people, it has conflict, it has interesting characters and cultures that have been created. So definitely investigating Expanse RPG and seeing what system looks like for that, and maybe how to make it a solo type thing. So take care, have a good holiday, and I will probably have the next episode up after the holiday season, or I'll try something live during one of the days that I'm not going to be working. But yeah, take care, and take care of yourselves, because as I'm fond of saying, you're the only you have. Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye.